are back live again for the second time today because I messed up earlier. So we're going to have Vance and Hines joining us here real soon. All right. So Vance and Hines should be joining us shortly. Like I said, I screwed up earlier, and I did live feed. Hello, Brian.
How you doing, Pat?
Hey, man. Pretty good. So everybody, this is Brian from Vance and Hines. We're going to talk some FP3 here today. And Brian, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us what you do there at Vance and Hines.
Hey guys, so my name is Brian Deline. I'm the electronics brand manager for Vance and Hines, which essentially means that I work with our electronics team in developing new software and new features and tools for the FP3 app, as well as electronics product development.
So what Brian's trying to say is he's inside and out with the Fuelpak. And so I've known Brian for a while, and Brian also has a good insight from doing events, which is a great way to learn about how customers interact with your product, isn't it, Brian?
Oh yeah, big time.
So let's start kind of, somebody just asked if we have the same barber. I think we do.
Pretty close.
So let's start kind of ground up, right? And so I'm sure we both get similar questions. The one question I get a ton is, do I need a fuel injection controller? And I know that's a wide open question, but I'm going to let you kind of answer this, because I've given my answer a million times. And what is your answer to, do I need a fuel injection controller?
So I think even a stock bike can run a little bit better with a fuel injection controller, regardless of anything being done to it. So if it's the stock airbox, stock header, stock mufflers, then even just doing the fuel injection controller is going to make it feel a little bit better, richen it up. They're already pretty lean from the factory, and give you a better ride feel. So the second you start doing things like mufflers, it's a really, really good idea. And then once you go like headers and air cleaner, it's an absolute necessity.
Yeah, because people don't realize those bikes, they on the Harleys leading up to this too, they would always cook the insides of their thighs. And that is a side effect of a lean running motorcycle that needs a fuel injection controller. Yep. So they were adding that air, but they weren't adding that fuel in there, and that fuel will cool that motor off in addition to doing many other things.
Right, yeah, essentially internal combustion engines, still remain to this day just big air pumps. So once you've got more air going in and out of your combustion chamber, in order to keep the air-fuel ratio constant, you need to add fuel, and the way you can do that is with a fuel injection tuner like our FP3.
So let's talk a little about this. I think barrier to entry for a lot of folks is the actual use of a fuel injection controller. I think a lot of guys just check right out, and they get scared off by that. But you guys have really made it super easy to do plugging this into your bike and using a phone. Can you kind of walk us through just the basics of that?
Sure. So what we've tried to do, like you said, is make it as easy and simple to use as possible, but still give you all the tools you need at your fingertips to get a good running bike. So typically you would open up the package. You'd plug it into the data port of your motorcycle, either a J1854 pin or a CAN bus 6 pin. From there, you would open up the free FP3 app, which you can get from either the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. Once that's installed, you can connect to the FP3 with Bluetooth, similar to a set of Bluetooth speakers or your car or any other Bluetooth device. I think most people are pretty familiar with that process by now. And then typically it'll go through a firmware update. It's all over the air, so you plug it in. As long as you've got LTE or Wi-Fi signal, it will go ahead and automatically update the firmware in the unit itself. It'll verify it on our server, and then from there you can just pick whatever components you have for your bike. So if you go with our new, say, Torker 450s, along with a set of power duals, you would search for, Vance and Hines. You'd scroll down until you saw power duals with Torker 450s. You'd press that. And then at the bottom, you would just select the file, and then it would flash it into the bike. The whole thing takes about maybe 10, 15 minutes on that first pass. And that's because it's updating the firmware, and on top of downloading the file from our server into your bike, we're also backing up the stock OEM calibration, and we're backing it up to your unit itself, and are also backing it up to our cloud-based server. So that way, if you ever needed to restore it, say you lost your FP3, we could remotely, through the use of a new FP3, send the stock calibration back to your bike. So there's a lot of cool things that we can do.
Map. Let's talk a little bit about the maps. I don't think people understand what it takes. You guys build these maps on your own, meaning you guys put product on bike, put it on a dyno, and then make the map. So they're essentially getting a pretty customized version of a map.
Yeah, so all of our maps that we create are done with real parts on real bikes in one of our 5 dynos. We, I believe, to this day, still have more dynos than any other facility in North America, which is a really cool resource to have. Running everything from a single wheel 250i to a dual drum 250iX, using all sorts of WinPep software, 7, 8, and keeping everything up to date. And so what we end up doing is, we come up with a new product, again, say the Torker 450s. We would install the Torker 450s on an OEM header, our power duals, our dresser duals, and then we would do that for both air-cooled and twin-cooled 107s and air-cooled and twin-cooled 114s. And coming out shortly would be our 09 to 16 variant, so for the twin cams. And then once those are out, we'll be doing the same mapping process for all of those as well.
Yeah, so a lot of work goes into supporting this unit, and it's a continual process, right? Like you're saying, you guys are coming out with new product. You're updating your maps and updating essentially the functionality of the unit in real time.
Yeah, so we'll update new features. One of the things we added in the past year is volumetric efficiency delta tables for auto tunes. We've got features built into it, like being able to recalibrate your speedometer using GPS. On top of it, we're coming up with new maps based on customer feedback. I had customers maybe 6 months to a year ago asking about our street rod maps in particular, and we went ahead and tweaked those based on customer feedback. So then you could re-download the same file from the server and have a fully customized map straight from our dyno for you and your bike.
So the other thing about Fuelpak is it's a great tuning aid for sure, but I don't think a lot of people they may not realize, but they also may not use the functionality this thing has. So we've started to, we came out there a few months ago, we made some videos with you guys, shameless plugs here. If you go to our YouTube page, you'll see some of the videos. We talked with Bryan at length about FP3 out there, and we actually toured the facility, and it really just they showed us how things are made, which is great. And that's the other thing, you guys make this in America.
We do, yeah. So we designed it here, we make it here. Everything's done in Santa Fe Springs, California. We can crank out, a couple hundred units a day when we're at full capacity. And it's really nice to work on a product where not only do we make the maps here, but we make the hardware, we've designed the case, everything's done and built here.
Okay, so let's talk about some more functionality of this thing. The thing that I love that's almost to a fault, I can distract myself, is live sensor data. And so you can have live sensor data on your phone. You have say you put a handlebar mount on the bike, you can ride around with live sensor data, or in a shop if you're trying to diagnose something. And not only can there's so much, you can actually custom configure the screen on your phone to see specific data.
Yeah, so on the live data screen, we have one large center gauge, and then 4 smaller ones in each of the 4 corners. So you can have up to 5 configurable gauges on your bike. So you can look at everything from, O2 sensor voltage front and rear. You can look at calculated horsepower and torque numbers. You can have your own tachometer, so your bike doesn't come with a tach, you now have a tach. Yeah. You can put, KPA map sensor in there. You can look at engine temperature. You can have a mini digital speedo. Say you're one of the guys who builds a custom bikes and you pull the gauge cluster off just for that nice clean look. Well, if you have something like a quick removable handlebar mount with our live data, you can basically still have the functionality of your speedometer, your tach, everything you would need right there on the phone.
Yeah, the other thing about this, and so we're starting another shameless plug because that's what I do. We're starting to make specific videos on specific functions. And put them on YouTube. And one of the things we just did was reading and clearing trouble codes. So I think a good feature is, before if you'd see that dreaded orange light, you needed to go pay somebody necessarily to tell you what that was. And it may be something small that costs you a lot of money to diagnose. Now you can do that with this.
Yeah, so sometimes if you get something like a P0131 code, open O2 sensor, you can do a couple things. You can, figure out what that code is. You can clear it. If it comes back, then it's something you probably need to address. With that live data screen, you can put live O2 voltage front and rear and see if it's fluctuating or if it's not. It could be something as simple as just a bad O2 sensor, and being able to read live data would tell you very, very quickly whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, that's a great point, is that you can, in conjunction with reading the code, you can go back with the live data and kind of dig a little deeper in there. The O2 sensor is a great example. we had a code on our Fat Bob the other day is because I forgot, we changed exhaust. I just forgot to plug the rear O2 sensor back in. So that was the code. Again, something small, easy to figure out with this. The other thing is we get a lot of questions on decel pop. Decel pop, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, is you roll to a stoplight or you roll off the throttle and you get the pop, 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 bang. And you guys have a really, you can kind of take care of it two ways. But the really simple way is the little firecracker dial. Can you get into that for us?
Sure. So to go on with my own shameless plug, we do this thing every week called Fuelpak Friday on social media, predominantly here on Instagram and Facebook. And not today's, but last week's, I actually did a mini video about decel pop. And essentially what the decel pop tool is, it's got 3 different settings: light, medium, and heavy. And it's based on, firecrackers and aesthetic. So it starts with 1 for light, 2 for medium, and 3 for heavy. And what that does is it adds fuel to the 0% TPS column. So when you roll off the throttle, regardless of RPM range, it'll add a little bit extra fuel so you don't get that popping, burbling type sound out the back of your exhaust. And then today I put out a video for basically a test ride on that same bike. So I repaired the issue last week on last Fuelpaks Friday. And then this week we went ahead and I did a 70-mile test ride through the canyons here in Southern California, up the coast of Malibu, and kind of went through the process of what you could listen for and everything you need to repair that problem.
Yeah, and again, I mean, real world, solutions to real world problems, I think are huge. You guys are out there riding bikes, putting bikes on dynos, going through a million different scenarios. That's huge. And I don't think, that's what, that's what you're paying for. Is you're paying for the unit, but the support you're getting with the unit is far beyond what you're paying for. Well, you guys do a lot of R&D.
To go in on that support, right now a number of us are working from home. California says that we currently can't be at the office. And so there's a handful of us, predominantly customer service reps, who, to this day, even though the shop is closed, you can still get a hold of us for FP3 issues, standard customer support, call, text, email, online chat. We're still here and we're still available for everybody.
That's awesome. So another feature that I think it probably goes unnoticed, which I think is really cool, is can you talk a little bit about throttle progressivity?
Yeah, so EFI, or throttle by wire. Sorry, the dog's pawing at me. The joys of doing this.
Working from home, yeah.
Yeah. At least the kid's asleep, so. But yeah, throttle progressivity, essentially on an EFI system, there's 2 different tables. There's a primary throttle blade control and a secondary throttle blade control, and then a switchover gear, which selects when you go from primary to secondary. And again, through the app, we've been able to make some very simple user interfaces to change throttle progressivity, rather than having to go in and manually adjust 3 different tables on your own. So you can set it for, mild, medium, aggressive, or race mode. Milwaukee 8s pretty much come 1-to-1 from the factory, so I usually recommend people go race mode or leave it as is in the stock configuration. But for twin cams, it really makes a big, big world of difference. As far as when you get on the throttle, it's instantaneous, the response that you get from it.
Yeah, and that's something I don't think. I know people probably are familiar with the term fly-by-wire, this and that, but that is a you get from having a fuel-injected bike. Where if you wanted to do that with a cable-operated bike, you'd have to change the cams in your throttle hand, things like that. Now you can go in there. Exactly, and now you can go in there electronically. You guys make it available, and again, you make it really easy to go in there and you can, I know you can get more finite in there, but you make it really easy to pick those kind of 3 levels of responsiveness, which is really cool. Another thing guys ask us all the time, and that is about RPM limits. And that's another easy thing you can get to in here, is adjusting that RPM limit.
Sorry, for whatever reason you broke up a little bit there.
So talking about RPM limit, so a lot of guys want to raise RPM limits. That's another thing you can do really easily in here. Super simple to get to, but like I always say, don't raise it to like $9,000, because your Harley's not meant to spin that quick.
Yeah, so it's a pretty. No, That'd be good. It's a pretty simple change to make. We do have a maximum RPM table setting in there, so you can go in and enter it to whatever you want. But all of our base FP3 maps have the rev limiter raised from the stock configuration already. So instead of being at say 5,500, we usually will set them to somewhere between 6 and 6,200.
Yeah.
And then on something like a street rod, where it's got the dual induction module and the hotter cam compared to the 750, we've actually went ahead and bumped the max rev to 9,500. We did a lot of testing with that one at 995 and 10, and 9,500 was kind of the sweet spot on that particular bike and motor configuration.
So as far as FP3, I mean, what do you think is most like overlooked by customers, by riders? What kind of functionality is in here that you don't think most people are utilizing enough of?
I'm sorry, Pat. One more time. You're breaking up.
I said, as far as functionality, what do you think is really overlooked with FP3?
So there's a couple of things. On CAN bus models, we have maintenance trackers. So if you go into the live data screen, you can reset the odometer. You can then go to maintenance, and you can go ahead and set yourself up mileage trackers. So it will keep track of, when you last changed your tire, when you last did your service. If you want to start it at the beginning of a road trip, you can see precisely how far you've gone. And so it's kind of a cool way to sort of keep tabs on your bike and maintain it and take care of it as it needs to be taken care of. So you'll know when your 5,000 or 10,000 mile service is coming up. You'll know when the last time you changed a front or rear tire is. And so that kind of thing is really nice. And then on top of it, every 2 years you're supposed to do your brakes. And I believe you can go ahead and set it, and then there'll be a date associated, so you can go ahead and keep track of that as well.
That's awesome. Like I said, there's a ton of stuff packed in here. We're going to keep going through and making the one-off videos to deviate a little bit from Fuelpak here, because since we have you, what do you have that you want to talk about coming up new from Vance and Hines? I want to drop one thing in there real quick, is the Torker 450s. We got to, well, I'm losing Brian, I think, right there on a connection problem. But I'll just keep talking and see if he comes back. When we were out there at Vance and Hines, we got to see up close the Torker 450s before anybody else did. We got to run them on a dyno, and they sounded wonderful, especially you guys with stock M8 motors. If you have an M8 motor, Brian, I got you back. What I was talking about was Torker 450s. Anything else you have new that you can tell us about would be great. But we got to see the Torker 450 up close and personal. And I will say, on a stock header with an M8, typically that's been difficult to get really good sound out of there. And you guys really crushed it with the Torker 450.
Yeah, so with the Torker 450s, we made a new baffle, but on top of just making a new baffle, we actually had to design and engineer specific tooling to make in-house. And so we actually went so far as to go ahead and file for a patent on that new LS275 baffle in the Torker 450s. It basically gives you the same power that you're used to getting out of our products, but a lot more sound, a lot more feel. I've gone ahead and done about 2,000 miles of riding on our 114-inch Road King Special. I've taken it up the coast to Solvang, a bunch of test rides, some dyno time with it, and they really, really are a phenomenal sounding and performing muffler for the Milwaukee 8s.
Yeah, that's been difficult to get good sound out of stock header Milwaukee 8s, but you guys killed it for sure. One more thing I want to bring up, FP3, are you guys are constantly updating the app and the unit. I mean, that's very Tesla-like of you guys. It's not a static product. You guys keep making it better.
Yeah, we try to continually add new features just to make everyone's life a little bit better. Even something as small or simple as the auto tune. Before we added the volumetric efficiency delta tables, which were essentially a product that we designed or a function for the Fuelpak Pro for the dyno tuning module. We decided that it would be nice for people to see the difference that they're making in their auto tunes from start to finish and how much your tables are actually changing. And the other nice thing about that is we color-coded it, so it's a very simple visual indicator of if you need to auto-tune again, or if you've done enough auto-tunes to the point where your map is polished and you're good to go. So if you have mostly green cells within that preview table for your front and rear deltas, you're good to go. No more auto-tuning, no more wasted time. constantly going in and flashing the map over and over again into learning mode. It saves people a lot of hassle and a lot of time. And it's one of those really simple features that we basically took and built for the Pro module that found its way into the standard FP3. That is a big addition to the Fuelpak FP3.
Yeah, that is super helpful, especially with auto-tune stuff. People kind of, get a little bit lost in auto-tune, so give them that kind of green light indicator that, like, you're good to go is pretty slick. Is there anything else you want to touch on? Obviously, Fuelpak Fridays are big for you guys. You can learn a lot more from Bryan. Is there anything else that we should know about today?
The big thing today is, a lot of people don't realize still, we launched the Fuelpak Pro about a year ago. And we built it for dyno tuners and shops in mind. So that way, if a customer, say they buy, 0107 and then they decide to put a cam in it, and, our stage 2 maps are pretty good for the cams, but then they decide to go full bore, stage 4 big bore kit, 124, 128 inches, then, you can find a shop locally with the Fuelpak Pro and take your same FP3 and go and get it fully dyno tuned for whatever parts you can throw at it. And I'm even waiting, once we get back into the shop, once we're allowed to return to work, I do have a T143 inch powered 2016 Dyna that's going to be coming in. We've already done the break-in map for it with the Fuelpak Pro, and we'll be doing full tuning on it, hopefully, within a few weeks of returning back to the shop.
That's awesome. I've ridden a couple of those T143s. They're monsters. That should be a good little project. Bryan, thank you so much for taking the time, man. I really appreciate it. You can always check him out on Fuelpak Fridays over on the Vance and Hines page. Thanks for coming by, man.
Cool. Thanks, Patrick. Have a good one.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
Hey, guys.